Hi everyone, and thank you for joining us on the special youth screening of But I'm A Cheerleader. I'm Kiera from the GFT Youth Board, and I've been joined by Lydia Honeybone, curator of Queer Classic Screenings and GAMIS, a cinema regeneration project. Lydia, thank you so much for joining us, or me.
Mhm.
I'm just going to jump into it. So, Lydia, what would you like to tell us a little bit about what you do and how important queer cinema is to you?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the kind of like crux of my practice. This is how I got into, um, I guess, like I'm a sort of film programmer in some ways. With GAMIS, the project that you mentioned, we're trying to open a cinema in the south side of Glasgow for like this sort of specialist screenings. And those and that sort of like that project kind of came about. It sort of was born almost through a project I ran called Queer Classics. So in CCA over a weekend in I think 2018, it was actually the sunniest weekend of May. So like the sunniest weekend that year. And for anyone that's looking to make it like film events, it's like not in Glasgow in the sunshine. People like the audience was scant, but those that did turn up, I think like I know got a lot from it. The idea was to like school the children, you know, like there are, you know, we have always been here as queer people, that like there is a long history of queer cinema, and I just wanted to highlight that from, you know, if you've never seen Paris is Burning to like I found some really interesting and obscure Japanese queer cinema from like the 60s. So yeah, and from that it's sort of grown into much more of like an expanded community project, and we became GAMIS, which is Glasgow Artists Moving Image Studios, and the remit is more than just talking to queer communities, but obviously really forefronting them. Last year we screened Derek Jarman's The Garden in a which is amazing, and if anyone doesn't know Derek Jarman's work yet, yeah, look it up. He's an incredible, well, he's no longer with us, but he was an incredible filmmaker who passed away in the 90s. So yeah, it's like queer cinema is like the crux of everything that I'm interested in.
Well, that's really interesting. It's amazing that you're doing that and obviously highlighting queer cinema and media more like in Glasgow, because it's kind of a wee bit hidden in Glasgow, even though we've got such like a big gay scene. But
Mm.
it's great they're highlighting it more because it's very much still needed, I'd say.
Yeah, I think the thing that was important to me was that there are sort of these like the narrative kind of like around a lot of queer culture is that it's like new, and it's like, you know, as civil rights improve for us, like
Yeah.
there's a sort of narrative that these are new things, and that these are new rights that we're gaining, and things like more visibility on screen, but you know, especially as British culture as well, we've got a very rich history of queer on-screen representation that I thought was really important to bring to people.
What impact, just now that you're talking about the long history of like queer cinema, so what impact did But I'm a Cheerleader have when it first came out?
It came out in 1999, and so I was only about 9 years old. So I I couldn't exactly tell you, but I can tell you that amongst me and my friends, when we discovered it, probably in like our teens, um, it was a really special film to us. I think I also like I rewatched it for having this chat with you, and I just like I think the soundtrack was the thing that really got to me, because I just like I remember my friend Belle, who was like, we must have been like 14, 15 when we found it, made me like sort of downloaded like mixed CD that with like all the songs from it, like illegally downloaded off like
Yeah.
LimeWire or something. I'm sure you're not old enough to remember. This is pre-Spotify, and yeah, I think that the soundtrack is something that really stood out again, and brought back so many memories watching again.
I love how like the movie captures the same thing every other like chick flick rom-com has, like Mean Girls, for example. It gives the same vibe, but like differently. And I love how it like stuck with the same theme of like the early 2000 movies as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's of that genre. Yeah, I don't know if it was as popular as, it probably wasn't as popular as something like Mean Girls at the time, but it is really amazing that it's having this resurgence.
Just going on with the resurgence of the movie, obviously it's gained a lot more popularity just in like the last few years, maybe probably because of lockdown, to be honest. What impact do you think the films had on like queer media and the LGBTQ plus communities now?
I mean, if you watch it, just the aesthetic qualities of the film are just like so incredible. I think like 90s culture is definitely here, isn't it? In fashion and like music and art and performance, like it's all looking definitely at that exact like kind of late 90s era, which is something my mom just finds like so hilarious. She's just like, oh, it was awful at the time. I don't know what people are doing now. Yeah, so I think it's like legacy is definitely within fashion, but also if you look at the cast, like how many recognizable faces were in that? I mean, so it must have, I don't know if it launched careers, but I think it definitely like must have had such an impact. I didn't even realize until rewatching it recently that that's RuPaul as the guidance counselor. I was like, oh my god, that's like the most famous queer person in the world, probably.
I can't even remember how I fell into the movie. I think it was because I'm like in a few like lesbian group chats and we were all suggesting kind of movies to go with. And I think I also found it because I used to be obsessed with the movie Zombie Prom, and that has RuPaul in it. So I was kind of just like looking about, seeing what else he was in. And I was like, oh, and found But I'm a Cheerleader, because it's probably my favourite genre is RuPaul in these campy movies from the 90s.
Have you seen So Long? Oh no, good. Thank you, Julie. The Julie Newmar one, the road trip one with Patrick Swayze.
I think I might have seen a few bits of it.
That I recommend.
Yeah, I'll need to watch for it because I've only seen like a few clips and I'm still not went around to watching it yet.
RuPaul's not in it till the very end, but it's a good one.
Oh, just a surprise appearance from him. What key changes and developments have you seen in queer cinema like recently, or maybe in the last few years?
Yeah, I think, I don't know, I kind of wanted to talk about more change that I'd like to see, because obviously like Natasha Lyonne, if I'm remembering her name correctly, does such an incredible job. She's such an iconic character within But I'm a Cheerleader, and really like you can't really imagine anyone else playing that role. But I think the direction that we're going in now and that we're seeing is like casting directors attempting to choose queer actors to play queer roles. I think it's like especially important when it comes to like trans identities as well, like that, because there's just so little on-screen representation still. Like that I think is definitely something that could be improved. Yeah, I think there's a richness that's coming into the writing of queer characters that I really appreciate seeing on screen now. I think I mean, But I'm a Cheerleader is very like tongue-in-cheek, even if it has like some serious like things that it's to think and talk about. But I think, and I will say, I think more so in like British film and TV, queer characters were always like just ooh, you know, a little like not, they weren't like, they were these like side characters or these like kind of like comic relief characters. They were never the main character. And I think like since like say Love, Simon and you know, films like that, there's a richness being written to queer characters, which I hope continues to expand. I mean, I would love to see more sort of like complicated examples of like queer love and relationships as well, like kind of less sort of focus on the sort of the arc of like there's an interesting phrase like homonormativity. I think so. I'd like to see less writing where it's like boy meets boy and then there's a happy ending. What if it's a bit more complicated, because we are all really complicated people? Where's our storylines that are like that? I think it's heading in that direction. It's giving me a lot of hope, the sort of queer cinema that I'm seeing these days.
I just wanted to quickly suggest a movie that I don't know if you've seen it or not, but it's the movie called Sweetheart. It has this actress Nell Barlow in it and Sophia Del Martino, who was in the new Loki series. And we screened it at Youth Film Festival last year, and I've done a Q&A with Nell Barlow, and the characters, like, it's about basically this mum or sister and her daughter all going to a caravan site on holiday, and it's like a lesbian romance that happens, and it's very messy, it's very complicated, obviously, because the main character is a teenager, so it's a really good movie, and it's just got a nice feel good to it, although it does show loads of like deep issues, like even with families and all that, and I really suggest you watch it. It's a brilliant movie.
Oh, sounds great. I mean, that's what I mean by looking for like narratives that are complex, you know, like as opposed to I feel like queer characters previously were always like, if you're not the best friend, the comic relief best friend, like B character, you had a tragic storyline as well. And I know that Killing Eve just got, I hate, spoiler alert, but like, you know, when I watched it initially, I was like, oh, okay, you know, there's a lot of violence in it. It's to be expected that that's the ending. And then the more I sort of thought about it and read about it, I was like, no, that's really offensive. And isn't what happened in the novels. So yeah, I think a move away from like either like a euphoric homo normativity being aspired to, but also a move away from the tragic. Yeah. Can we just have like the complex lives that we live reflected on screen, please?
Oh yeah, just for once.
Yeah.
Sorry, since we're running out of time, this is my last question, and you've obviously said a bunch of movies that you think are really good, but I'm going to ask you, what's your favourite queer movie and why?
I'm really. I'm going to have two. I'm going to be greedy and have two. I think having talked about Derek Jarman earlier, I would like. There's a film called The Garden by Derek Jarman, which is like, it's filmed. He's almost equally famous for being a gardener as he is for and his garden that he made in Dungeness, which is like an amazing kind of desert coastline in the south of Britain. It really showcases this this beautiful landscape. It was made in like the 90s, and it's sort of political and it's dreamy and it's complicated and rich, and has a very young Tilda Swinton in, and which actually brings me to my second choice, which would be Orlando, which is by Sally Potter, which is have you seen that one?
I've heard of it, but I've not seen it yet.
I think it's because I think you could almost ignore it from the queer canon, because it's a kind of trans story, but it's also it's based on a Virginia Woolf novel, and it transitions through time as well as gender, and it's just like and it's not explicitly queer, but you do get to see Tilda Swinton playing a man at the beginning and being a woman by the end, which is yeah, I feel like Tilda Swinton's the only one I feel that can get away with not being queer but representing the community so well.
I need to give both of them a watch. They sound really good. That was wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me on this call today. And I just want to say a big thank you to our audience for joining us for the screening of But I'm a Cheerleader, and this fantastic discussion about LGBTQ plus cinema.
Thanks so much. Cheers, bye.